It's not red yet. There, it's red. Now we're live. Hi. Hi, Miss Terry.
Hello, Miss Nancy Jean. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Oh, I've got a banner up. Okay. Do you want me to talk about that book first?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I think we should.
Okay. This whole show is about how we can take care of ourselves and how we can refocus. And instead of going through your news feed and losing your crap, first thing in the morning, this is what this is a book a friend gave me when I was first out doing my YouTube channel. And it's a book it's from 1993. And the friend who sent it to me had to go find it. I understand it's back in print, but it was a New York bestseller. And my friend had had her copy since she saw it under Bill Clinton's arm when he was president. And this woman's I could be her mother. I mean, she's the age of my kids. She said this book so changed her life and her understanding of synchronicities and listening to the world around you. And I cannot tell you what a fun journey this will be for you. Now, you can go find it on Books on Tape, and it's read by Jeremy Irons.
Kaylee was just talking about it. It's her favorite book to listen to.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you listen to it at night, that all goes in your head. So whatever you do, but this is a wonderful book, and I pulled it up so that Terry could copy the name. So I'll go. I don't ask me how to say his last name. He's from South America. It was originally printed in Portuguese because he's Brazilian, I think. But I cannot tell you when people say, what's just a fun book to read that's about metaphysics. It's you'll love it. And in this time, this kind of book is so much comfort to us because it's somebody else that's on a journey they didn't really want to end up on, and how they find their life. So,
Callie says she thinks it's Coelho.
I'll take your word for it, kid.
Yeah.
I have enough trouble with my last name. So,
right. Yeah. I love that. I love that.
What else you got? Miss Terry's going to lead us into the beginning of this conversation.
Well, I was kind of thinking about that place in between. It seems like we keep bringing that up, the gap, the place in between where we hear somebody say something and we respond, and how that we're not taught in this group or this life, what we know as society, how to respond. And as empaths, a lot of times we just want to heal people. So if somebody we love in particular says something like, oh, nobody's listening to me at work, or I can't do this or I can't do that, we want to jump in and help, or we want to jump in and save. And really, if we can let people talk, they can kind of figure it out if we give people space. And that in between space is such a healing space. So I pulled this out from Viktor Frankl. Take a breath, fill the space between the breath in and the breath out. This is the space Frankl speaks of. This is where presence lives. This is where freedom begins. In a world that moves quickly, that pulls at your attention, that provokes emotion after emotion, you are being called to pause, listen, and watch. Listen, not just with your ears, but with your heart. Watch, not just with your eyes, but with your awareness. Respond from love, not fear, from presence, not reaction. And that's huge right now. Your soul always knows that every moment is a choice. You can't always control what life gives you, but you always have the power to choose how you meet it. And in that choice, you reclaim your peace, your power, and your purpose. So the next time the world rushes in, remember the space. It's sacred, it's yours, and it is the key to your freedom.
That's true.
Yeah. So I thought that was beautiful. And then, of course, one of my favorite books that I keep on my desk at all times, I think I can pull this up with any subject, is
Those are
Stillness
good books.
Speaks. Yeah, by Eckhart. And it's an easy and it's always like so easy to just read it. And that's the way he wrote it, really, is so that you can just read a paragraph of it and put it down. And then it'll kind of click in with anything that happens. But I do find it interesting the way that um, there's a lot of we have lots of opportunities to react right now in this lifetime. There's so much chaos going on the planet, and it's really easy to think, oh, and especially if you have friends that are really active in politics, and Nancy Jean, for instance, grew up on politics. I mean, you've got so many politics that you've done in your lifetime. Your son is really active. His career is active in politics. So it's like it's real easy to see all this stuff, and it's nice because you've kind of had that moment in your time in your life where
Oh,
you
I'm
can
so
see
glad
things
I'm not in
happen.
it now. I can't tell you.
I bet, and see it from the other side. But for us, it's like if we see a newsreel on something, we don't see it once; we see it like 10 times, right? Because it just
Right.
regurgitates all over the place. So every time that happens, your body reacts. Every time you see that news clip. So really watching that and being aware of it. Yeah, Seascape says it took me a long time not to knee-jerk reaction until I realized it was only hurting me. Right? Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Annie Bear just borrowed the manuscript one from her library. They have it on audio. Nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's and at this point in time, it's like such a thing to go and just listen to the book, and it's really hard for me to sit down and read a book. I can't. Last book I read was the one that the astrology of a pandemic was based on. That's how long ago it was, guys. I'll read parts of books, or I'll open it up and I'll just find what I need. But I didn't read books when I was in high school. This is my nasty little secret. I never read the texts in high school. I used to just know what was going to be on the test, and I didn't know until I went back to my high school reunion for my 50th high school reunion, when by that time I was on Facebook as being a psychic reader. And I said, well, if you've seen my stuff, when we all stand up, if you want to, and explain who you are and why you're there. I said, you know that I'm a psychic reader. And I had a big high school class, but the people that were there applauded. And I was like,
Wow.
I sat down and I said to my friend Anita, who'd been my buddy, my pool playing buddy, because she had a pool table in her basement in junior high. I said, what the hell was that about? And she said, you finally figured out who you are. And I said, what? And she said, we've known it all along. And then I found out later that they said, don't you remember when we'd break off into study groups for different subjects? When it came to English and history and math and the social sciences, everybody fought to be in your group. And I said, I never saw them tearing the clothes off my body to get close to me, right? So I'm like, really? And they said, we couldn't figure out how you knew what all the questions were.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I just kind of write down after what the teacher talked about, and I'd write out what the questions were. And they said, no, you used to write the exact question sheet they'd asked. And I had two older siblings, so they thought one of my siblings had a test file or had gathered. And I said, no, I just kind of, if I was going to ask a question about that class, that's what I'd ask. And they said, you didn't know you were doing that? And I said, no. And this one woman said, I never would have made it through history, because I could never figure out in that whole fat book what they were going to ask.
Wow.
So I don't read books well.
Yeah. Well, I I could read the books, but the textbooks were I just couldn't get it. Like I wasn't, I've got some learning disabilities. So Edgar Casey was really big, and I'd put my books underneath my pillow at night
Mm-hmm.
to try to get the information like he did. That's how he would absorb information,
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't work. I'm here to say.
Well,
It was not.
I was what they called a precocious reader.
No.
I crawled out from behind a chair at the age of 3,
Mhm.
reading my brother who was in first or first or second grade, reading his book from.
Wow.
So my parents went and said to Dave, "Were you teaching her how to read?" He said, "Hell no. I wondered what the hell happened to my book." So, and when we were children, we did not say hell no in my house, but, um, and my youngest was a precocious reader. She could read the newspaper at 3. I could read the newspapers when I was 3. And when I was little, I used to read my mother. I remember I was so short, I had to reach up on the top of the cabinet to get the Time magazine off. But I used to read my mother articles out of Time magazine when I was that short.
Wow.
So, I feel so badly for my friends who I knew struggled with reading. I had a couple friends who were kind of dyslexic, and I knew they couldn't see the things the way I did.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got everybody's talking about the book being on that there's the second one is called Warrior of Light, and he says,
Right. Yeah,
right.
this is the other book. I've
Yeah.
read that one. I read this one, but
Yeah. Yeah. When so and sometimes if you have PTSD too, you might have a hard time reading. Like for years after my husband passed, I could read nonfiction, but fiction I couldn't get into. I just,
mhm,
and I was always a really good fiction reader. I've got to say that because it would take me away to a different
mhm.
place. But then a nonfiction when I was growing up wasn't, and then it reversed as I got older.
Yeah, but I think when your husband dies or when you go through those kinds of
Yeah.
really dismembering things, your life is fiction. So
Well,
you try to pick up a fiction book and read it, and you're going, hell no, that's not what it's like. It's what I'm living in. This is fiction.
I got one up on that one for sure. Right? Yeah. Yeah, that's easily done. Easily done.
Um,
Anyway, it's interesting how we're not taught how to grieve. We're not taught how to listen. We're not taught how to heal.
we're not taught how to move on, even. I
Yeah.
mean, they're just like move on. Matter of fact, I'm I don't know if Danny and I are going to do it anytime soon, but I did a show when I was first on the air, and it was the day that I was exactly the age my husband was when he passed.
Oh,
And I said, I now have lived as many days as he did. And then I talked about how he and I had had a whole course at my church on grief
mhm.
and dying and letting go and letting yourself go. And he didn't go to church, but I would bring the class home, and this interested him. So he and I did all the workbooks where you write your own obituary. Who do you want to have there? You just kind of look at what the whole process is going to be, so you're not sticking somebody else with it. But the most interesting was we had the chaplain from Parkland Hospital, which is our big public hospital here, and uh, a doctor who would help people write their living wills to say, I don't want this kind of intervention. I do want this kind of treatment. So you're not having people fight in the hallway while you got a tube down your throat and you can't say shit, right?
Right.
So anyway, Danny and I did a lovely show on this about how to plan for your death and how to get or just look at the issues, because I run into it when I read people, and if it's the issue we run into when I'm reading you, I'm gonna help you go through it. But I'm just amazed at the number of people who have horrible, oh, what does my loved one think on the other side because of all these things we didn't settle before they left. Now, sometimes you have no control over that because they got hit by a bus or something. But um, sometimes there's a lot of stuff you can get out of the way. And I had 3 months from the time my husband had the stroke till he died, and he died of cancer, which they found after he had the stroke. It's one of those kind of stories. And but he and I had talked before, and I knew he didn't want a feeding tube. I knew he didn't, the things he did not want. And he told me when they found the cancer, he said, "Get me out of here. Do whatever you can, but get me out of here." And we knew because we've been through it. And we'd been through it when I was in my high-risk pregnancy. He came in one day and he said, when I was in the hospital, trying not to explode and lose a baby all at the same time, and he came in and he said, "I'm just telling you straight up, and I know I can do this because you and I have discussed it. If they come in one day and say it's the baby or her, the baby's gone." He said, "Because I want you." And we, thank God, didn't come down to that. But I knew that's what he was going to do. And so there was and a lot of people would be afraid to say that in a difficult situation. We'd already been through all the kind of nightmare scenarios. So, and what Danny and I did was a show. We did it with Kim, medium Kim, Fulton, who was I don't know if she's still hospice nursing. By the time she was hospice nursing, and Danny has a close friend who's a chaplain, a Buddhist, but a chaplain at a major hospital in California. And we all four got on there and we talked about the importance of preparing ourselves for the worst. So,
yeah. Foxy Roxy says, when my husband died, I didn't go to any counseling. I never felt comfortable in groups of any kind, so it's not a good fit for me. There is no limit to grief, nor should there be. Right, Foxy Roxy? And how many people say, "How are you?" Like you'll run into somebody at the grocery store and
that's a trick question.
Oh my God, right? And now to this day, when people ask me, "How are you?" I just look at them for a minute and think about, well, let's see, how am I? And it takes me a minute to answer, and it's very uncomfortable for them.
Well,
yeah, did not go. That's what
what I used to do. What I used to do is I used to say, "How would you be?"
That's a good one.
I've lost my business partner. I've lost my husband. He died. We were married for 20 years when he died. He left me with a 13-year-old child.
Yeah.
That's the thing he grieved for the most, was he wanted to see Susan grow up.
Yeah. That's tough. Mm-hmm. Yeah. How are you is a really loaded question. And it's, to this day, I stop and think, but it's always ups and downs, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I had a nun that used to come up to me. I worked in a Catholic hospital when I was in high school, maybe. And she goes, her question always was, and I thought, it's really what we should be saying. I hope all is well today.
Oh, I like that. That's very Merlin. Yeah. Mm-hmm. White Dragon says, when I kick the bucket this time and they want me to return, I'm going to write me a sweet deal or I will not be back here again. Famous last words.
Yeah. Well, I have a friend who's died 3 times on the operating room table. And the last time they sent him back, he said, I came back in kicking and screaming. And they told him that when they began to realize he was coming back, the doctors said his legs were running like he was trying to not go where they want him to go. He said they're so lovely and they're telling you, but you are going back there. Tough titties,
Yeah. Yeah, that's
we're just a little ways off topic now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
It's okay. Pitter patter.
Do you have other things for show and tell? I have.
No, you go ahead. Oh, yeah. We want to see this, you guys.
This is a book called Inner Size, and I will put the banner up on it. And I found this book when I was reading Table Live. And in it, there's a whole lot of crap. And if you get on his mailing list, he will chase you down forever to take his class. But he's got a lot of good information, but the one that was in here, he's got about releasing mental energy, increasing your own self-confidence, eliminating the inner block. And that's the one that I used to use at my table. And he's where I learned, and he said, he admitted it wasn't his. It was done with scientific training in California, but they would monitor people and have them do the 6 deep breaths. And you can actually watch your brain chemistry change. So you go from lizard brain, after react, to being responsive and having that space, that glorious space to make a different decision other than shooting yourself in your foot. And I used to use that pre-COVID. Was at the table. This is one of my favorite stories, and I've probably told it before. A young lawyer came down. He sat at my table, and I'd read a woman lawyer who'd been there with him earlier, and he said, "You certainly nailed her." And I said, "No, I didn't nail her, dear. I just saw the patterns around her, and she's making some really good choices." And he said, "How does this work?" And I said, "That's a long story." And after we got to talking, I knew he was there for a reason. And it ends up that I said, "Oh, you work at a big law firm." And I was still on the edge of politics at the time. And I actually knew his boss. And he said, "Oh, I work at a firm of da-da-da-da-da." I said, "You work for da-da-da?" And he said, "Yeah, why?" And I said, "Oh, he's an asshole." And he looked at me and I said, he makes you come in and grovel for the money he's going to give you anyway, because he wants to keep his name in the mix. And I said, "I have other lawyers who my secretary has to check, just stop in and say hi, not him. What's the stance on this?" He had to be all this crap. So, and I just said, he tries to own people and he never owned me. I went in knowing exactly what his game was and stopping it. And he said, "Then you know about what he does." And I said, "Well, what does he do to you? Because I know what he does to me. But I'm a little old lady with purple hair, so what can I say?" And he said, "I go into the group meetings where they're all bringing in the piece they've looked at in a major case." This was one of those law firms that did big lawsuits. "And I've researched it and I know everything. I know every point of everything I need to know." And I get in that room and he stares around the table. And the second he looks at me, it's like my brain drains. And he said, "I'm really, no matter how I train, no matter what I do, I go in there." And he said, but everybody knows I write the best stuff. So but it's just the personal open meetings with other lawyers that are working in the firm. And I said, "You want to stop that?" And he said, "You got a card for that?" And I said, "No." And I explained to him about stopping on the way when he leaves his desk and he's knowing he's going into that meeting. I said, "You're already panicked before you get through the door." And I said, I can tell you from having met the man, he has that sense. I know I can find the victim in the room and focus in on them. And I said, "So you're going to make yourself not be a victim?" He said, "Well, I'm not a victim. I know." I said, "I know you know your stuff, but I'm going to give you the edge." So I told him to stop in the restroom. Nobody's going to follow you in there, right? And you take 6 deep breaths and just clear your mind. Just take everything out. And he said, I said, "No, clear your mind. Let it be open. Let it be free. Pull the air in, release it, and feel your body. Feel yourself in your body." And I actually made him do it at the table. And he said, "Oh my God, I really feel different." And I said, "And if you do that before you go in those meetings, you'll be surprised." And so I didn't see him for 6 months. And you never know when you tell people shit, whether they do it or not. So I didn't see him. He came in one day and he was not with his friends. It wasn't a happy hour time. He'd stopped by. He knew Tuesday nights. And he said, "I did it." And I said, "Yeah, I can see that you did it." And I said, "And it worked." He said, "It was amazing. I was sitting in I did it before I went in there, walked in the room, sat with everybody like normal. He started looking around the table to call on people, talk about issues. His eyes looked at me, and he immediately looked away and went around the table and went to the next guy.
Mm. Yeah.
And I said, that's what you can do. And you don't want to, okay, there are times we need to be reactive. Okay. You're driving down Central Expressway at 70 miles an hour. You better damn well be in your lizard brain, because that's what they're all in. That's where you need, I mean, we need both parts of this brain, but we don't need to make ourselves the victim. And I think, and the less you make yourself the victim, the less you are afraid of all the other things that you are afraid.
It's a real common thing to make ourselves the victim. Like, we've got this political thing going on in the planet, and this is what they're doing to us and whatnot. And turning that story, when we change our story, it gives us so much more power in our lives, or just what we perceive as being our lives out here.
Okay. I can tell you, when you work in politics,
Yeah.
and someone's doing something that's designed to trigger you off.
Yeah.
When you're a consultant and you're talking to your client or people who are working with a candidate, because sometimes the people around the candidate can be as detrimental to the candidate as the candidate can be to themselves. You don't say, why are they doing this to me?
Mm-hmm.
What is this doing to me? You change the wording and you say, what can I learn from this, and what will this do for me?
Yeah.
What lesson is in this for me? And change it into so you're accepting it. You're not just, it's not just incoming fire, like that guy who was picking on that poor young lawyer. He knew that lawyer was going to have the right answer. And people who want victims have to find them. And that's what the change in our universal energy is right now, to go from the person that everything's done to saying, I have this opportunity, so now how can I move it? I mean, there was a huge march in Dallas on Sunday from the Cathedral of the Guadalupe to some part of downtown. I don't know where they walked. It was a walk, that's why I wasn't there. But it was huge, huge. And this is going, and there's going to be another one on the 5th of April, where they're having them all over the country. And that's when it's time. This is what it's doing for me. It's giving me the opportunity to go out and meet and walk with like-minded people.
Mm-hmm.
And meet and communicate, instead of sitting in my own little room going, I don't like this, I don't like this. Putting that energy out there to, you're going to understand. And they're feeling it. Not to talk about politics too much, but it's going to be really interesting to see what comes out of the Supreme Court election and the 2 Florida elections tomorrow. Saturday, 4 constitutional amendments, which normally just go through like butter in Louisiana. They were all soundly defeated, and they were bad things. They were not things people figured out. This is bad. I cannot sit at home on Saturday and buff my nails or do whatever you do. You got to get out. You got to know what's happening in your area. And so I'm going to get off. I'm going to get away from politics. I promise.
That's okay. Yeah, we've got, we had a big thing today, or this weekend too, but I had a thing in the family that I had to go to. So there's a lot of different ways that we can do that. But what you were talking about when you changed how you spoke about something,
Mm-hmm.
changing our story and how we see things is huge. And if we come from a place of worry or a place of being the victim or being angry, and we should respond like with our feelings, definitely, and feel them. If you're angry, if you're sad, particularly if you're grieving, and experience those feelings, but don't live there and then move on and kind of watch them. Once we start watching things and looking at ourselves, how we're feeling, going into curiosity and going into
Mhm.
the heart space and like, how does my heart feel when I look at that? What am I feeling now? And how can I change this? Or what if I change the story? This is a process that's going on in my country right now, so we can find out what we don't want anymore.
Well, we
So,
let it go on for too long. But
yeah.
the other part is I do have empathy for people, but I'm not a true anything of all of the labels people put on people. But you can't fix it for everybody.
No. Yeah.
And that's why they were sent here. And so it's my job is to try and help you get the best tools you can, and to help you understand where I've done things that have worked, and even more um, when it hasn't worked, and then to learn from it, or when something did work, then how to uh, walk people through it. How to say, how to be prepared for grieving, how to be prepared for loss. I saw a fascinating interview, and it's on YouTube. Do you know who Dame Black is?
Mm-mm.
She's the head forensic anthropologist in England. She's got bright red hair, and she's done some fascinating shows on historically when they dig up bodies, figuring out what happened, how did they end up, were they murdered, and all this kind of stuff. But she also went to Kosovo, and when she started in school, she's probably 10 to 15 years younger than I am. She uh, was forensic science was like this big, and she turned it into, made the state understand it had a responsibility to let people know. But one of her things is to identify bodies that are otherwise unidentifiable. She did an interview, you can find it if you put Dame Black in interview. She did a thing on what death has taught her, and she came from Wales, and she came from part of Wales. It's a very they go to church, but her family were Presbyterians. And she said her mother used to always say, "Death is your friend. You may as well make it your friend. You cannot make it your enemy. It is there beside you until it takes you to its place." And she talks about death and dealing with death, and how when people deny death, they ball themselves up because it's undeniable. I mean, it happens. It's going to be there. So, and she said a lot of times people will act in fear because they're trying to avoid that subject. And when you dig past all of the other shadow work around it, is it's going to make me cease to be. And she said, and that's the first thing. She does not talk about souls or the other side or anything else. But it's really her perspective on accepting death. I really enjoyed the interview, and I can tell you 30 years ago there's no way I'd sit through an interview about death and dying. I was like, no, it'll happen soon enough. I'm not going to worry about it. But she can help you get some perspective if you don't have that. A lot of us do. Some
Yeah.
of us do. But
Mm.
I'm always empathetic to the fact that I have to let people stumble and fall into the crevasse they've dug for themselves to fall into, if that's where they're going. I mean, I can say, there's a crevasse there.
Mhm.
You really want to go there?
Yeah. Yeah, it's, people will find their way, and, like, when we listen to them and really hear them, they'll really find their way, and, usually on their own, right?
Hmm.
You can tell somebody something, but it doesn't give them the power to change it. So, they can find the power, and they're really good about it.
Hmm.
Liza says, "Do you all perceive we are in a squeezing and difficult, dark, heaving birth canal? It seems to me we would just have to go through it and not despair. I dislike it, but say yes to it." Liza, that's beautiful.
Where I'm looking for that.
11:34 my time, so it'd be, I think, 12:34 your.
No, it's 11:34 on mine.
Oh, it is? Oh, okay.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're in the same time zone.
Yeah. So I love that, Liza, and I do feel like, the divine feminine is giving birth to a new world for sure, and I do feel like the divine masculine is holding space for her as she does this, that it's gonna be a combo, a balance that we're coming into. But yeah, that deep, dark, heaving birth canal. And you know what's interesting about that, Liza, is my daughter is, studying to be a doula and a
Mhm.
massage therapist and a lot of other things. Um, but and she talks about how, the way that we look here at birth and say, oh, it's going to be so painful, it's going to be so this, so that, we can really change the story on that and look at it in a different manner. And of course, she's doing everything all natural and everything with everybody, but she had her first birth that she went to help, and she said it was really beautiful. She gave everybody massages while they were there, and they had music playing and a pool, and they just changed the whole story on it. And it was a beautiful birth. It was completely different than the way it would be in a hospital, perhaps. So I had both my kids in hospitals. So
I had my kids in hospitals, and thank God, because my first son, they thought he was going to be maybe 7.5 pounds. He was 913.
oh my God.
It was my first delivery, and I had him the good old fashioned way. Um, and that's Sean. That's the one that's in Wisconsin now. And he said, "You never quit talking about me being 913." His kids were 10, 5, and 10, 14. I mean, there's some giant have to have, and they're not big. I mean, it has nothing to do with what they finally grow up to be like, but um, size at beginnings. But and everybody was talking about all the pain and stuff, and I was sitting there going. The nurse said, "Would you go through that again?" And I said, "Go through what? I just had a baby." I mean, I didn't tie into the Murphy Brown. Do you remember? Did you remember when Murphy Brown gave birth?
I remember when she was pregnant and after she had the baby, but I don't remember the birth.
Oh, the show where she gave birth.
Yeah.
He was grabbing every man that came in the room and just about beating him to death. It was, and I understand. But I didn't. Of course, I don't feel pain all that much anyway. But it's just,
Yeah.
it's kind of where we are, and we are in a difficult time. The universe is having a difficult time, and that's why each and every person that's hearing our voice needs to decide how they're going to deal with this, because you could you can feel some of the energetic shifts, and let them run in fear. Don't make them make you run in fear. You know, and I don't, not that I set out to make them run in fear, but if somebody's running around in fear, I don't want it to be me. So,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Hey, Garnet, welcome. So I love that, Froxy. My hubby and I would always say, plan your work and work your plan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's huge. And you guys, after we've been abused and whatnot, we will feel like a victim. And that's a common thing to go through. Not common to be abused or anything, but common to kind of look at that and see, oh yeah, this happened to me and it was really hard. And, before you heal. So that's just, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just trying to figure out how we can heal, and not just heal, but also thrive.
Mm-hmm.
After that is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Deanne says, after being severely abused for years, I didn't just learn the victim seat, I learned to be the victor. It takes a lot to make me mad, especially when people bully and abuse others. Yeah, right, Deanne?
Right. And I
Same
can't
here.
imagine doing that to anyone.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of the first things I ask myself is, how would I feel? They say, I think Buddhists had you say, like, three different ways before you say something.
Mm-hmm.
Think about how you would feel if somebody said it to you. Think about it. Is it for the highest good? And then there was another point in there. But and I kind of try to think that like how would I feel if somebody said this to me?
Mm-hmm.
And I also now the other thing, and Tyler's telling me to work it, is I always worry about not worry, but I look at, am I being clear? Am I putting out my words clearly and succinctly about what I want and what I want to say? Because that's the other thing, right? We hold it back sometimes after we've been through abuse or lots of grief or trauma, and we don't speak clearly what we truly need or what we want. So I'm going through a lot of that right now. Anyway,
Yeah.
and that has in the last 10 years, last decade.
Well, you know, Neptune moved yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
and we're coming out of 248-year cycle, really, um, into a new world. We can now spread our wings and fly like a new butterfly. If you open yourself up to that energy being there, it's there.
Yeah.
The vibes are there.
Yeah. Coming out of Kali Yuga. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful, Deanne. Thank you.
So we also can refocus our energy. And tomorrow I'm going to do a show with Val about creating an energy field around jewelry you wear so you can protect yourself. And when you buy jewelry, what you need to do, um, so that we can start taking responsibility for our own energy. And so, for those of you who haven't seen it, I finished 4 grids since I saw
Oh,
you.
yeah. I want to see him. We've been talking about those.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Sharon Saib. How are you?
And I know the lady that will own this grid is in the group because I saw her name come by.
Oh, yay.
Let's see if I can pull it in so you can see a little bit more closely and not see the junk all over my desk.
That's beautiful.
This is for a lady, and she pulled this card originally, which is authority. And authority is the frequency of authority, reminds us true authority is powerful, directed, and realized, yet that true power is receptive, wise, and loving. This part, these stones right here in the middle, that's her assuming her own authority. But when we finished that, I looked at it and I said, we're not done yet. So I don't normally let people pick 2 cards, but I let her pick a second card. And she pulled this one.
Wow.
That's remembrance. And the frequency of remembrance supports our memory of everything that we have gone through in this soul body, providing us with valuable information and tools to flow gracefully into our new life. So she has all of her old soul energy, including these. This is where the energies combine, and it goes into this. And these are amethyst points that come from Brazil.
They're beautiful.
And this is tiger's eye.
Wow.
That's carnelian. Yes, that's carnelian. And this is a certain kind of pyrite that gets other minerals tacked on it. And it's got a little teeny tiny stone of apatite on it. And then this is the one that's most interesting in here. I got a bag of quartz from the Himalayas, and it had been manufactured in the Himalayas into a teardrop. It's a pure quartz. It's a quartz that's as clear as the quartz that comes out of the mines in Arkansas, which is some of the clearest quartz in the world. And that was my last one. And when I had a different stone there, and I went, that's not right. And I opened up the drawer, and this one rolled.
Wow.
And said, I'm here.
What are those little kind of bluish gray stones?
The little blue stones?
Yeah.
It's appetite.
Oh, yeah.
Not like appetite you eat. It's APATITE.
Yeah. I've got it. Yeah.
It's a long. There's a whole series. There's appetite and Amazonite, and there's an aquamarine, and that's really going through three states of consciousness. So this is the last one. This is aquamarines when the thoughts are coming through to you. This is how they read to me. Um, Amazonite is when you're pulling that energy in and shielding yourself with it. And this is when you're consciously using the energy.
Wow.
And when she gets her grid, that will all be explained to her.
So I don't know why this movie really calls to me, or this movie. It is a movie that they're
It's a
talking.
movie.
Yeah. The movie, what is the one? It's kind of in space and they're going to a different dimension and they go to the water dimension. They're the tall people with the tail that they plug into the pony or the horse.
I know what you're talking about, but I'm blanking
Yeah.
on it too.
Somebody here knows what it is, but it's beautiful. I would love that one. Yeah, I'll take
Well,
it.
and each one of them is individual. I
Avatar.
mean,
Thank you, Ricky and Rossi. Yeah,
okay,
Avatar.
this avatar, that's it. I knew another A word. That's why I was
Yeah.
blanking there. Okay, this is for compassion. I'm not going to go in the whole thing, but this is what this woman needs to have for herself in this life and to share with people. And the frequency of this particular layout supports our ability to stand by others without judgment and to be a divine mediator between the heaven and the earth, spirit and matter, so that unconditional love can flow through from source into the heart of our world. Isn't that pretty?
That is stunning. That makes me feel very stable.
That's what she's going to do for people.
Yeah.
That's what she is. And the thing is, that's where she was the day we read this, and she'll put, if she wants to, I can't make people do anything. She can put a list of intentions on the bottom of this and underneath it, and it becomes like a little power grid pumping that energy out. And for her, that's what she wants. She wants to have more compassion for the world around her. And
what a beautiful thing to ask for, compassion.
well, she pulled it blind out of a stack of cards, guys. You have no idea. This is the universe really talking right to you. And this is an interesting one. This is perception.
Oh, well,
And
wow,
if you know,
talk about movement.
every stones are paired up in fours, and fours are building bases. And she's building new bases. And the frequency of perception supports our natural curiosity, moving us beyond our comfort zone. And that's what it's going to help her do, is get beyond her comfort zone so she can perceive on the outer edges of what she knows is real.
Wow, that one almost makes me dizzy looking at it. That's got so much energy
It's
going.
got green calcite in the center.
Yeah.
It's got these little guys are Ukanites. These are yellow adventurines, and I have a whole bag full of yellow adventurines and the only thing that's missing, I'm going to put a little piece of quartz on each of the eyes, but that's yellow adventurine, which opens up your senses to the spirit of adventure. And then the moon shapes, these are blue adventurines. And blue settles your energy. So it's hyping it up here and calming it down here. Isn't that cool? And then she's got green adventurine, which brings in new adventures. And then she's got rhodochrosite. And rhodochrosite it's not the prettiest. Well, it is the prettiest stone when it's really well polished, but it's not one of those stones that like quartz or like this calcite. When you see it in real life, sunlight shines through it. It's a beautiful shade of green. It's not that kind of stone, but these stones, these and unikites, are so good for grounding our heart energy. It's just unreal. There's a reader, I built a grid for him, and it was all roses and pinks, but it was all rhodochrosite and things like that. And it's not that he needed his heart opened, he needed his heart protected.
Wow.
And this is called alchemy. And this is the body moving through the stages of enlightenment. This is honey calcite, which is just one of my favorite stones. And I'm so glad when I went to the rock shop to build this, they had more honey calcite in, because honey calcite's just, if you just want to buy a stone and hug it, honey calcite. I mean, it's just fun. Alchemy. The frequency of alchemy activates our magical ability and remembrance of the magic from the past. So it's moving all that remembrance in so that we can hold it inside. Each day, each one of us has a potential to access all the ancient knowledge of the world if we want to, and are allowed. And when we become the true alchemist, and I forgot that I have that book, but the true alchemist, to perform the miracles of transmutation. And these three stones, this is unakite, and it's got a black moss agate on top of it. And this stone is the rhodochrosite, and it has yellow aventurine. And I told you, rhodochrosite opens up your heart, and yellow aventurines helps you have the energy to move on. And tiger's eye, and this is a beautiful tiger's eye, and it's got green moss agate on the top. Green moss agate is, you can actually, if you see big chunks of it, it actually looks like you're looking at trees and things growing in the stone. And it's all surrounded. And this is an agate called mookaite, Mookaite. And it comes from the Mooka riverbeds, which feed the opal fields in Australia.
Oh, I was going to say it sounded like Australian or New Zealand.
Yeah, it is. And I had the good sense when I saw it in the store to buy 2 bags of it, but I'm running out of it. But it's a beautiful agate, and it had, these stones have so much power when you hold them or when you touch them. And anyway, what I'll do is I'll send, these will be, those of you who've been saying, she's been showing to me for the whole weekend, why isn't it mailed yet? I have to document everything I just told you. I have a form letter that goes along with it, and it tells you how to use it, how to set it up. I have to attach a wand to them, and I have a big bag of wands.
Is it a calcite wand?
No, the wands they're going to get are, I have some quartz wands I got right as COVID was going on. And they're rutilated quartz wands. So there's little streams of silver and gold. And when I was going to put rutilated quartz with all my work, and they're not big, they're tiny. They're like this big, but they're very powerful. And I went back to the store and they only had 3. And I said, oh my God, I need like more than that. So they said, well, we'll see what we can find for you. They called all around the country and they found me, because all trade had stopped between countries during COVID.
Yeah.
They found me the last 100.
Wow.
From that mine. They bought them for me, and they brought them in, and they charged me what they would have charged me without the rarity of them. And so I paid amount for them, and I was in the store, and they're now twice that. So I said, I have 75 of those if you want them. I have also little wands that are made out of crystals that are bigger and pointier, depending on what people want. But right now I'm going to get rid of all my rutilated quartz. So,
wow.
Will I ever teach a crystals class?
Yeah. Good.
If I teach crystals, it will be behind a Patreon, because I'm going to have to spend at least 2 days every week getting ready to teach what I need to teach. I've been mapping it out in my head. The reason Tarot was so easy is I taught it before Jeffrey and I started teaching it. So we basically took my class and turned it into a YouTube class. And speaking of my Tarot class,
Yeah. When is that starting?
it's starting again. It's got a banner.
Oh, good.
Hi, my moon. I don't know how that ended up there, but okay. Tarot class. Tarot class starts 4/16, which means in 15 days, and it's Wednesday evening. It'll be probably 6 or 7 Central Time.
Okay.
Because that way the people in the East Coast don't have to stay up till midnight. And the people in the West Coast can hopefully get in.
Yeah, that's good.
And then I'm also going to teach a Saturday class. And right now we have it Saturday at 3, I do believe is what the description is. You can go to www.crystaldirections.com and all the information's there. I've already got 5 people in the night class. I only put 10 people in each class. So if you have a preference for time, that's what you need to do, along with all the class notes and stuff. I mean, I send you PDFs you're going to say, oh my God, that woman, does she have nothing else in her computer but this? But also, Jeffrey has created a cheat sheet, and he's made it into a book besides his shadow work book. This is a different book, and it has keywords and his thoughts on all the different cards. And if you take the class, you get that for free. You'll get that when you start the class.
It's a great book, you guys. Hi, Danny Shea. Hi, Lauren.
Oh, hi, Danny. I hope you got a hold of Sean.
Yeah. And yeah, your ears should have been ringing before we came on. Somebody was asking about the approximate cost of a crystal grid. I know all that's on your website, isn't
It's
it?
$250.
Yeah.
And you guys have no idea. I mean, I have thousands of dollars worth of crystals behind me. I have to pay those off sometime. I mean, I was putting my own cash out there to get that. And I really do take the time to be thoughtful. It's not something I pull out and just throw it together. As you can tell from the way I talked about those stones, I lay them all out on a mock-up, and then I write it all out, take a picture of it, and then I throw it all in a bag, and I wait 48 hours, pull it back out, look at it again, and believe it or not, there have been cases where I went, what were you thinking, girl? That's not what I was like. And it's like the lady that ended up with the Himalayan teardrop. I'd completely forgotten I had that in my drawer because I bought that 3 years ago. Also, for those of you who don't know about my 9 candles will return on April 24th through May 2nd, and it's how to transition into change. So I hope you will come in. And that doesn't cost anything but you got to be on my mailing list. I'm sure Terry and I will be talking about it. It's a pre-recorded show. Most of the times I have other readers on with me, but with the 9 candles ours, we have 9 candles. We have a certain meditation. All my guides have told me so far is I have an awkward adult child.
That's who I am.
All my all the guides have told me is, and they don't tell me, I mean, I'll sit down one day and I'll write the whole thing out.
Wow. Danny's going to be on with Sean in 30 minutes.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. The 9 candles is amazing, you guys. It's a ritual. So it has a lot of power. It's a lot of alchemy involved, right?
Right. And if you don't have, I mean, it's good if you start at the beginning, and you can have your own 9 candles. And for those who are worried, any 9 candles will do. Pillar candles, any color will do. Rainbow candles, I don't care. If you have a really tall candle and you light it 9 times, that will work. This is where the 9 candles throws away the idea that we have to have such rigidity and form in our rituals. But because I do the 9 candles, is why the elementals chose to work with me because they like ceremony. And trust me, they're going to be in this big time. And for those of you who haven't seen him, here's my little Cecil.
I love that.
He's my little Cecil. And he flies around my desk and he likes to play. So, everybody, that's where we are. And we're out of time, Terry.
Oh, we are, aren't we? Okay, everybody. Well, have a great day, great week. And Danny, have a great
have a good show, Sean. I'll watch.
Good to see it. Yeah. All right.
Everybody take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Namaste.